What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. This time we're talking about another archetype to come with the Great Dark Beyond, and that is Draenei tribal decks. I have been going through the list and testing different things out in the Tavern Brawl, and the one class that I feel has the best Draenei support is Warrior. It has a number of Draenei in its class cards that I think are actually relatively strong compared to the rest of the Draenei, and therefore I think this is probably, if you are going to build a tribal deck, this is the best way to go about it. The issue with Draenei is that their health overall is relatively low, but the strong thing about Draenei in general is that they're able to really push a lot of attack, especially if you can stick them on the board. So really that is the weird type of paradox with the class, is like you get these high attack minions, but they're pretty easy to remove for most classes. That said, Warrior has a lot of support. There are a few Warrior cards that I want to show you that I wanted to build around, and then this is where I came with this starting deck list. Obviously things can be changed, but number one is Exarch Akama, which is the 5/3/6 Draenei, and you know, this card kind of has a special place in my heart because of its lore in World of Warcraft and Akama's story in World of Warcraft. But it's a 5-mana minion, 3/6. After this attacks, all other friendly minions can attack again, except Akama. So there are a couple of interesting factors about this card. One thing is he has to attack, but he doesn't have to attack the hero, and he does not have Rush. So if you were to use a card like through Felon Flames or something to give him Rush, you could effectively reactivate your board to swing again, which would be like a Wind Fury. So there is some type of aggressive deck option that has not been explored that could potentially be there, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Draenei. It could be any other type of, maybe a pirate warrior or some other type of warrior deck that could abuse that synergy between Exarch Akama and the Rush ability. Now, that said, this card is pretty cool. Other support that Draenei have, since we are going to try to build around that shell here, is stuff like Unyielding Vindicator, 4-mana 5/4 Draenei. The battle cry, the next Draenei you play, gives your hero its attack for that turn. You'll see that Warrior has a lot of support to buff the attack of minions. So in theory, you could hold something like a Expedition Sergeant or Astrobiologist or Starlight Wanderer in your hand and buff it over the course of a bunch of turns, and then play Unyielding Vindicator, then play the Draenei, and then attack phase for like a huge swing with the weapon. Or maybe you have, honestly, what'd be crazy is activating Ignis and forging the Wind Fury weapon and then attacking with that. I could see that being acceptable line of play. Other good Draenei cards that Warrior has access to are Stalwart Avenger, 4-mana 7/2, immune while attacking. At the end of each turn, you swap its attack and health, which gives it a lot of defense. For 4 mana, this is pretty difficult to remove for a lot of classes, especially if you and your opponent are fighting for the board pretty well. And this guy can get out of control relatively quickly, and he's immune, so like he is great at fighting for board control. And also Expedition Sergeant, which is the last Warrior class Draenei here. 3-mana 3/4. The next Draenei you play immediately attacks a random enemy, and there you see the synergy with like Discard and Stalwart Avenger, or even with Velen, Leader of the Exile. So you see here, Velen is the neutral Draenei. Taunt, Death Rattle, trigger the battle cries and Death Riders of all your other Draenei that were played this game. So you can see you can really rack up a ton of value and get a pretty big Draenei later on in the game. Other kind of cards to kind of wrap around the deck that are different here. Captain's Log, which is basically a arcane intellect as long as you have Draenei. This card actually hasn't worked out really well for me. I'm going to have to look at the decks, to the deck list in more detail to see if there's another way to flood the board with Draenei quicker. The way it currently stands, this card rarely ever gets me the discount to draw the cards, but the deck does need to draw cards. That card is kind of cool, and one little nice synergy that I've just been trying to play, even though I don't know if it's good, even though it's been okay for me, is Lunar Trailblazer. 5-mana 6/4 Battlecry. Set the cost of a random spell in your hand to this minion's cost. and I played Dwarf Planet, 2 copies of Dwarf Planet. So fill your board with random 2-cost minions that attack random enemies. So, I discount this spell with Lunar Trailblazer since it's the only card. And then, I play this for 5, right? And, honestly, in my experience with the Tavern Brawl, games have gone way past turn 10. So having this expensive card in the deck doesn't feel that crazy. So, yep, here's the deck list in a nutshell. You're seeing gameplay footage of what the deck does. It is pretty cool. There are cool lines of play. The problem with Draenei, like I said, though, is that most of the buffs are hand buff effects, like, Crystalline Great Mace. There's the 3-mana 4/3 Death Rattle Battlecry Draenei. Like, I removed him from the deck. Like, it's difficult because you want to keep a balance of Draenei in hand, but at the same time you want to put out enough minions on the board to fight for the board well enough. So I'm not sure if the deck in this current shell is working, but I think the shell is very, very strong. And like I said, really, Exarch Akama, just because he's a Draenei doesn't mean the deck has to be full of Draenei. Like, his effect is just, it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter what the creature type is. So there is something there that is worth experimenting and building around, whether it be like pirates or whatever it may be, or whatever type of aggressive strategy or mid-range strategy you have. But anyway, I hope that is interesting. Let me know in the comments what you think about the deck and what changes would be made to make the deck better. And yeah, good luck with the Great Dark Beyond experience.